Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel for a review. So, Matt here and we reviewed Godzilla King of the Monsters together when we went to the Overlook Film Festival. And correct me if I'm wrong, but was that the very first time you were ever on this channel?
I want to say possibly. I
It might
can't
have been.
correctly remember. We might have done like one or two videos before that, but I believe
Maybe
it
like a
was,
vlog or something?
yeah, might have been my first review, but we vlogged before. I'm going to go with that. We're going to say it was one of the first. Also, I am very nervous to come back after the comments I got on that one, so hopefully better.
I mean, that's kind of the reason I wanted to do this with you right now is because, we went through that back then and let's see, where the franchise landed in the end. So, this right here is our review of Godzilla versus Kong. Matt, you have synopsis duties today.
I'm going to do my best. I know Perri does it best herself, but we're going to switch things up. I'm going to try doing a synopsis. So, we know where we are in the monsterverse at this time, but in this point in franchise continuity, the kaijus have been living among humanity for a few years now. Kong is still on Skull Island when the movie starts. He's in this holographic enclosure. It's really cool, but he's being monitored, we'll say. Godzilla, he's still stomping around, but we do get an inkling that Godzilla has been dormant somewhat. And all of a sudden, Godzilla comes back and attacks Apex Cybernetics. Kong is chosen as a defender.
I'm going to get the obvious out of the way first because this is essentially what I tweeted about the movie. I think all the Titan stuff is great. I can watch Godzilla and Kong on screen all day long. And the problem there is the same problem I think every installment of this franchise has had. It is the human characters. All I wanted was more Titans, and all right, I take that back. That's too extreme. Not every single time they cut to the human characters, because I do think there were some improvements there, but there isn't a single movie in this franchise, this iteration of the franchise at least, that has kind of cracked the code of how to have kaiju mashup fun and also a compelling group of human characters to further the narrative.
I will agree with you 100%. I will say that the closest to me they've ever come in talking about that character development and the way they're able to have characters and kaiju moments together is Kong Skull Island. I think the characters they work with there are the most enriched, I will say, and the most empowered to actually be characters versus our perspective to the chaos going on. And what happens here is an amalgamation of taking that Kong Skull Island character development and trying to do it here. I think there are glimpses. We have Rebecca Hall's character, and we have a tiny child like with Rebecca Hall who is able to communicate with Kong through sign language. And Haley Hoddle is actually deaf, and I think that's very significant because you bring in a deaf child actor to do that role, do it right. And those moments to me are the best character moments, hands down, in the entire film, because we have a human actor working alongside, quote unquote, Kong, the giant Titan. And like that to me is actually the closest in the franchise we've ever been to like, holy crap, this is a really good emotional development arc. But everything else outside of that, you introduce these industrial business characters who mean nothing and they should have greater stakes. And the Titan stuff is awesome, but the character development still lacks wholly. And we're here for the Titans. I agree with that. But we can still have both. We can still have a good character development arc as well, and it'll make a better movie.
I think the best human character of the bunch was Kaylee Hoddle. I thought she was fantastic in that role, and a big part of the reason why that character worked better than any of the other human characters is because of the close relationship she has with Kong. And I'm not saying a human character can only work if they have, a genuine sensitivity and connection and like a more positive relationship. I think there's ways to do different kinds of relationships. It's just those other ones don't really work as well. And just to respond to something that I saw a lot on social media when I tweeted that initial reaction, basically a whole bunch of folks saying, this is a Godzilla versus Kong movie. I'm not here for the humans anyway. And on the one hand, I do think that's fair to a point, because ultimately, you guys will hear this at the end of the review, I'm going to fall positive on this movie because I really dug Kong and Godzilla and I liked watching them fight together. I enjoyed this movie, but that doesn't mean it's an unfair criticism to say the human characters who make up really the bulk of this movie can't be a flaw just because there are human characters in a Titan movie, because the human characters here driving the plot forward from the inciting incident and beyond is essentially all in their hands. Yes, Godzilla and Kong make some decisions and play a big impact on how the story is going to pan out, but they are driving it.
I will say that my second favorite character, and the other character I think they do enough with because of the stereotypical arc, is Brian Tyree Henry's Titan podcast conspiracy theorist, but just because he's kind of comedic relief. I mean, he's able to do the comedic relief well, but there's still not enough with that character to give us a sense of his intricacies, we'll say. Even in that level where it's a character I still enjoy and is a good addition, and that's not to say any other characters aren't great additions, it's just these other characters that have been introduced in the entire throwdown, we'll call it, they don't matter. You're right. They don't matter in the grand scheme of things to Kong and Godzilla, because we are there for Kong and Godzilla. But if you have them matter, it's a more complete film. I am exactly in the same mindset of turning up to see Kong versus Godzilla and have that be the driving force of the film, because it should be, and that should be the most exciting elements. But if we have characters who we actually care about, and again, you said it before, like, they are the driving force behind the plot and the narrative. These are the characters that will get us to the fights. There are things that happen between the kaiju throwdowns, and those need to be just as in-depth. And like, you have to give some kind of, God, just empower them to be characters more than stereotypes. And they don't do that with a lot of them. So that, again, that's an issue to me, but that doesn't detract from the thing that I'm sure you're going to agree with and that you have said to a degree. I effing loved the throwdown. The Titans are great. The Titan fighting is exactly where it needs to be. And I think this is an upgrade from King of Monsters to me. Again, my opinion. I know this is my opinion, but it's an upgrade because you've taken the King of Monsters fight style, which was very dark, but still exciting. I liked the King of Monsters fight style very much. And you've melded it with the Kong Skull Island vibrancy. I think none of the MonsterVerse films have been better than Kong Skull Island to this point in building this vibrant world and colors and lusciousness. Like, everything on screen looks so gorgeous in Kong Skull Island. And that comes into play here in the heavyweight battle with the fight style of King of Monsters, and you've lightened it up. So all of a sudden you bring, like, it's a whole new depth to it. It to me, like, lighting up that world and making it so obvious is such a big factor that like, it's an upgrade. It's such an upgrade that it seems so insignificant, but go ahead.
I'm not gonna say that the fights here were an upgrade from Godzilla King of the Monsters in particular, because I mean, the Titans were one of my favorite parts of that movie, and that's a big reason why I love that particular movie so much, is because we got to see so many Titans in action, and because I'm a big Mothra fan. But it's a different style. I think that's the way to put it. And you bring it up with the colors that he uses in this movie. I definitely think that Adam Wingard has an eye for Titan fights. I'm not going to say he has a knack for developing the human characters as needed, but when it came to seeing Godzilla and Kong in action, I think they pretty much knocked it out of the park, because even beyond his framing, I thought the effects looked really good. And even though I'm stuck at home watching it, I still felt like I was watching something like big with a big scope. And I could feel the impact every time that Kong landed a punch. I thought all of that stuff played really, really well. I will say one thing, and this is another thing that admittedly I know is going to get some eye rolls given the fact that this is a Godzilla and Kong movie, but there's one particular fight sequence. You've seen it in the trailer. You know what's happening. It's not a spoiler. That takes place in a city. And I had a really hard time not thinking about how many innocent human lives were lost with how many buildings crumbled. And again, I'm very well aware that this is a Kong and Godzilla movie. That was bound to happen. But for a reason that I can't quite, put my finger on right now, it did take me out of that really well shot and constructed sequence quite a few times.
So the way that I will try to go around that, and this is not saying that that's valid, like, I totally understand that. Like, that's an understanding point where, when people watch superhero movies, they have the same reaction to the sense of like, well, superheroes are just letting everyone die and stuff like that. And this is something Amelia brought up too after watching it. And when we're watching superhero movies and the superheroes have a chance to kind of mitigate that, and they can kind of maneuver around and try to prevent such destruction, that's one thing. But kaiju's are gigantic. The Titans are gigantic. Like the whole point of a Titan film is to feel insignificant and to feel like humanity can just crumble underneath their feet,
Okay.
because it can. Like that's the whole point of it. It's just the sense of kaiju films have always been about these greater beings just living above man, and us being egotistical to think we can control them, and kaiju's being like, nah, like I can wipe out your city in literally minutes just having a fight. And again, I understand people like that is a complaint some people have, but to me, that I don't get stuck there because that's part of the stakes of a kaiju film. Like that's part of all of this. It's humanity can just be destroyed and wiped out that quickly. I understand, but to me, like those fight sequences when, you know, Kong is literally laid up against like a skyscraper and he's just like leaning against it tired because like he's in the middle of a fight. Yeah, that skyscraper is going to crumble in a few minutes and everyone in there is going to die. But that is again what is happening in every kaiju film. That is what's established. That's what's inherent. So that's my mindset, at least.
This is why I love talking movies with other people and not just myself. And this is also why I love hearing other opinions, because you make a really valid point there. And I'm curious to see how that sequence changes when I watch that with that on my mind. So
yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Matt.
You're very welcome.
We have hit the score points of the review. Would you like to do the honors first, or would you like me to? You want to do the synopsis, so you get to choose.
I'll go first. That's fine.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna land on a 3.5 out of 5 because Skull Island's still my favorite. I have to be honest. The way it works with the characters and the monsters, that's everything for me. So Skull Island for me is like a 4 out of 5. So the throwdown, the Kong versus Godzilla, the Godzilla versus Kong for me is a 3.5.
Admittedly, I'm teetering between a 3 and a 3.5, but I'm going to go 3.5 because of how effective I thought Godzilla and Kong, our title characters, were in particular. I mean, especially Kong. I know there's probably a lot of Team Godzilla people out there. I happen to be Team Kong, but I'm always rooting for both of them. But there's a couple beats with Kong and him being threatened where I was audibly shouting at my screen. And if you can get that kind of reaction from me, you get that 3.5 right now.
I'm with you, Team Kong, but the movie itself worked in a whole. And just for that, the stakes, they make the stakes actually palpable between two titans. You know, for as much as we complained about the human characters, the way that they're able to deal with their titan characters, I think, again, that's an upgrade in this film. So big ups there.
All right, there you guys go. That is your review of Godzilla versus Kong. This review is coming your way courtesy of a very special Patreon supporter. It is Luke. I can't emphasize this enough. Luke is just one of the best, such a kind guy, knows his movies, and is just such a great influence on this community. Those words didn't even do him justice. He's wonderful. Luke, thank you so much for being here. And a big thanks to everybody out there for watching this review. Like and share it before you leave. We'll see you soon with Merry Hour every Friday night right here on the channel. See you there.